Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is another edition of your favorite talk show, Viewpoint on DBS Television. Today, we continue talking issues affecting our country, affecting the world at large. And in today's edition of the program, we are receiving two ladies who would tell us what they think about the current issues in our society. Among these, we'll talk about the COVID-19 and back to school in Cameroon. We have Mrs. Dila Caroline Tala, who is a teacher. Good evening, madam, and thank you for accepting our invitation.
Good evening, Venasius, and thank you for inviting me, and good evening to all your televiewers.
Besides her, we have another lady. She is not new with us. We have Subiru Madina. She's a journalist. Subiru, good evening.
Good evening, Venasius. Good evening, Caroline. Good evening to all the televiewers of DBS TV.
It's a pleasure having you with us tonight. We would begin, Viewpoint is divided into two parts. Part one is made up of the question and answer session, and we would have part two that deals with the debate. Would go into the first part of the program immediately after this jingle. We take the first part with which is the answer question and answer session. We begin with Ms. Tala, and the question we are asking is there anything government should do to contain the rapid growth of COVID-19 in Cameroon?
Yes.
She says yes, government has something to do. Subiru?
No.
She says no, government has nothing to do. We take the second question. Subiru: teachers are demanding for some conditions to be fulfilled before schools resume come June the 1st. Is this necessary at this moment, Subiru?
No.
She says it is not necessary at this moment. Ms. Tala?
No.
Equally, she says it is not necessary. She's a teacher. We should bear that in mind. And we take the third question. We remain with you. Is it not the time for African traditional medicine to be taught in our universities like modern science?
Yes.
She thinks so. She thinks it is the time. Subiru?
It is.
Equally, she shares the same opinion. And we take the last question. We begin with you, Subiru. With neo-colonial rule, poor governance, and now COVID-19 crisis, is the African Union worth celebrating its 57th anniversary?
Why should they celebrate it? I don't think it's necessary.
So it is not.
Yeah.
Ms. Tala?
Not at all.
She says the African Union should not celebrate its day. This is what they think. These are their points of view. We would go straight away, take this jingle, and after that, we'll come back with the debate for them to explain to us what they think. Cameroon now records more than 4,800 cases of COVID-19 infection. And we are trying to find out, is there anything government should do to contain this rapid growth of COVID-19 in Cameroon? We'll begin with you, Ms. Tala. You said, yes, there's something government should do.
Yeah, definitely. I think the government has so much to do and that they can do. Like, for instance, we are talking about, they've set out rules already, certain precautions that we can take to combat COVID-19, which are still not sufficient. So I think that they can train and employ more social workers, and not only training and employing them, but being able to pay them. Then they should also be able to send these social workers into the neighborhoods, Going into the neighborhoods, I think that it would raise more awareness for the population. And I equally think that they should maintain the closure of borders, both the air and the land borders, in such a way that there's no entry and there's no exit in and out of the country. And I equally think that going back to closing the recreation centers like bars and nightclubs and all whatnot, it's going to go a long way, because you can bear with me that when government decided to reopen bars and all the recreation centers, most people now begin to see COVID-19 as a myth. the existence of COVID-19 as a myth.
A thing of the past.
Exactly. So they believe that there's no more COVID-19. So I think that government can go back and reinforce on those rules so that each and every Cameroonian will know the existence of COVID-19.
Thank you. And talking about the borders, we should indicate that yesterday, the 25th of May, Air France started its regular flight from Paris to Douala. And actually, in the evening, we have the aircraft was in Douala. So things are already functional.
Which is wrong.
Which is wrong.
To me.
Okay, that is what you think.
Yes, sir.
Subiru says there is nothing that government should do to contain this rapid growth.
Of course, I say there is nothing because government has already failed.
Okay.
Yes, it's true that from day one they were trying, especially the health minister. I have to congratulate him because he has been the lone minister trying to make sure that this issue of COVID-19 doesn't spread. But then others are there seated and just giving rules and regulations or just giving some sort of orders to other political parties, if I may say, and they are barely doing nothing to help the situation, whereas these other people or civil society experts or people are trying in their own means or in their own way to make sure that COVID-19 is being contained, whereas government is there instead, I don't know, making sure that this does not work. And that is why I said it is no longer necessary because that time had passed gone. And remember in the president's speech on the 19th of this month, he said we should put aside our differences. Political parties should put their differences aside. And I asked my question, if this particular minister took that into consideration, because he has been the one bringing his differences with a particular political leader in this country. I don't want to cite names. I think he knows himself. Government has failed because at the eve of school reopening, 1st of June, we are already getting to 5,000 cases. But then they are saying nothing. Let's hope that these coming days they will try to say something about the issue, because we don't know if some children are being infected. We pray it does not happen. And imagine a child being infected and goes to school. Even with the wearing of mask and all the like, Cameroon is not an orderly country.
Okay, so Biro, talking about government failing in their duty, according to you, when you look at the measures that government puts in place, they are not different from what other governments in other countries in the world at large have been putting or have been adopting as barrier measures.
Exactly.
Where is the problem of Cameroon?
The problem of Cameroon is management. They have failed in the management of this crisis. Because if they had shown to us that they could manage the coronavirus crisis, pandemic, if I can say, they would have shown that in the Anglophone crisis. They have failed in everything. And this coronavirus has just proven to us that there is nothing in Cameroon. There is nothing.
Like...
When I talk of nothing, I mean globally. Being health-wise, education and all the like. And I think if these are ministers that claim to have studied for long, until date, no concrete solution is being brought on the table. We have Samuel Kleda that came up with a drug to cure coronavirus. What have they done to support this initiative?
Coming back to it.
That is a problem we are facing today. And people still keep dying every day. But then we are seated and many people, we have traditional practitioners that are coming up with their medicines as well. But government is saying nothing about it.
Okay.
So how do we expect us to curb the virus?
Okay. Talking about the... Yes, Mr.
Okay, I just wish to reinforce on the fact that it is true that government has already failed, you know. But as bona fide citizens of Cameroon, I think that my health as an individual is a priority for me. You understand? Which means that if the government has not been able to do something to help me, what have I done to help myself? You understand? Which means that while the government has failed, we citizens of Cameroon, I think that we can still top up. We can still make it better. And just like Subiru said, the government there are things that the government can come back to that they had failed in, but why not? Because your voice has been, you have lifted up your voice, I've lifted up mine. Why not? Together, the government can hear that cry again. And why not go back to correct some of those things we feel that they had completely failed in?
Okay. That is about coronavirus. Now we'll talk something about education.
Yes, please.
We thank God we have a teacher with us, and you teachers generally you are demanding for some conditions. That's our second question to be fulfilled before schools resume in June. And given the time at which we are, is that necessary?
I said no.
Yes, you said that is not necessary at the moment.
Yes, I said it wasn't really necessary at the moment because remember that when we had just fewer cases,
yes,
they declared the closure of schools.
5 cases.
Yes, they declared the closure of schools, and now we are moving up to 4,890 cases, and they are declaring school resumption.
Yes.
Now, I stand on the point that when schools were closed, remember that the kids have been sent to various places. Some have been sent hawking around the streets or in the markets, meaning that they are in contact with many more people than they would have been even if they were in school. Which means that even though, despite the fact or irrespective of the fact that I, as a teacher or as a conscious teacher, I would like to go back to school to do that which I was called to do, and the children are excited to go back to school, I still think that the health of the teacher and the health of the children are a great priority. Which means that teachers have said no to school resumption, but outlining
some conditions.
Yes. And I think that even with those conditions, I don't know how they would guarantee the safety of the children and the safety of a teacher. In this regard, you will realize that when they look at this, the government is looking more about public schools. How about the private schools and the mission schools where the government might really not be able to intervene? You understand? Which means that all of this is being put in the hands of us again. And when you look at this, you're asking yourself, how will the follow-up be done? There is no school that I think would want to risk being stigmatized or being closed because they have been, or they would report a case of COVID-19, be it on the side of the teachers, be it on the side of the learners. Which means that, to me, maybe they're just looking at their end of year exams. But what's even the guarantee that the schools have finished their syllables? They decided to do some classes on CRTV and or whatnot, but you still think that in this country of today, even in this 21st century, there are still parents who can hardly feed. Talk less of buying gadgets for their children. Talk less of owning a TV set in this generation. Which means that there is no proof that if the classes resume today, the objectives of each subject would have been attained before the exam.
But yes, madam, we remain with you. We are still talking about this back to school, and one of the conditions that these teachers raised was to make sure that the exams are set within the up-to-date coverage, syllabus coverage. That is, they should only set what they have taught, and among one of these was that there should be meticulous and regular disinfecting of school campuses, of all school campuses. And the question I was asking you as a teacher, forgetting the fact being private or
public,
are these demands realistic?
I don't see them.
Because teachers who have been teaching without chalk, they don't give them chalk. Are you sure that government within this time frame, given the tight budget that we have, are these conditions realistic?
I don't see them realistic because just take Douala, for example. How many schools are in Douala?
Public schools.
Public schools are in Douala. There are many. How effective do you think that the government will take charge that every secondary school or every primary school is properly disinfected? What measures are they going to take to be sure that this happens. Now, looking at the syllables, the completion of syllables, you would realize that this is not a particular school or a particular teacher setting the exam. It's a public exam, a national exam, which means that it cuts across the territory, the Cameroon territory. Now, what is the measurement scale to show that this particular teacher has completed the syllables while this one is at this level? There is no measurement scale, which means that if these exams are set, it will, just like it would be good for others, it is going to go a long way to penalize other children, which might not be their fault, and end up, why not, discouraging them, like you said.
Okay, we remain with we go over to with Subiru. Subiru is of the same opinion that it is not necessary at this moment.
It is not necessary, Vanashis, because we have so many schools in Cameroon. It's true that, like Caroline just cited it, we have the national television that did some kind of classes for the past 1 or 2 months. But then, how do they think that everybody has a TV set back home? And if they want to reopen schools, they've said every child should have a mask. Will they be the ones, I mean government, to distribute these face masks?
That is one of the demands from the Teachers Trade Union.
If we have our own company here in Cameroon in the production of fabric and they are selling to us back face mask, how sure do they think those parents at 1,300 francs, how sure are they that the parents that were unable to buy a cup of rice will buy this face mask during this period? It's true that they said it's reusable 5 times or whatsoever. They can wash it how many times? I don't think it's concrete.
Okay.
And talking about the exams, losing one child is not the same as failing an exam or failing to have a certificate. You can repeat, yes, but you can never give birth to that same child. That is what government is failing to understand. And I know that most of their children are not in the country. That's why they're saying that they should always consider the fact that these children they are talking about could also be theirs. Because theirs are not in this country.
Okay. So
and adding again to the fact that they have to disinfect all the schools. There are schools that have been banned not to open again, Venatius, but they are still functioning.
Yes.
How will they know that this school was banned but still functioning, and this school was not banned and is not functioning due to this and so? So how are they going to measure these things before putting in practice or putting in command the fact that school should go back on June 1?
Okay. Yes, Venatius, just to add to that, you're going to realize that dates are created by people, and dates can definitely be changed by people.
Of course.
So we shouldn't just focus on the fact that because the end of course exams or the end of year exams
is always in June.
Schools must resume now because they need to meet that goal. I think that as a teacher, or yes, as somebody who interacts in the teaching domain, I believe that exams could be shifted to a further date. Why not even in September, where this particular, it's not the whole nation writing exams. We have particular children writing exams. Even though some are writing to go to universities, we can also say if it is national universities or our national universities, they could also push their dates of registration.
Yes, and resumption.
To make sure that they meet the need of every Cameroonian. Wherever they are meeting their needs.
Okay. One man of God once said, you can revamp the economy, but you cannot revamp human life.
Exactly.
So if one human life is lost, you cannot bring it back, but we can bring back the economy. We remain talking about the crisis, the health crisis that we have in Cameroon. We take our third question for today, and we are talking about African traditional medicine. And we are asking, is it no time that this field be taught in our universities like modern science is done? Mr. Ala, begin with you.
Yes.
Yes,
I think it's time. It's time because when you go into statistics, you would realize that the best specialists, the best doctors that we've had are Africans. And the media might not talk about it. People might not celebrate them. Why? Because they are Africans. But I think that as we are talking like right now, something needs to be done. We need to encourage. I think in the Bible it is there was this question that was asked: can something good come out
from Nazareth?
From Nazareth. It is the same thing that everyone, even us, in this black skin, in this African continent, that are still asking or doubting if something good can come out from Africa. Why? Because they've been brainwashed. They've been made to understand that anything good can only come from the Western world. But I think that from our schools, from our children, if we begin training them to believe in their roots, to believe in their intelligence, their God-given intelligence, because I think that Africans are super intelligent. Not more intelligent, not less intelligent than the Westerners. I think that African traditional medicine should be encouraged or should go into the school curriculum. Look at Cleda, for example, of which I give him a great salute in the sense that he has come out. That is his own contribution to his nation. Trying to come up with something, declaring that this is what I have discovered. Can I be helped? Can I be assisted to see how we can solve this? I believe that if we go into that and we give him a chance, not doubting, let us not be doubting Thomases, but let's believe. Just like we believe in what is not real, let us believe in this and give it a chance. And why not? We are going to see that the COVID-19 cases will go to a minimum.
Thank you. Subiru, the white man made us believe that anything black is bad. That is why the concoctions that is cooked in the one corner in the kitchen is not to be consumed. Should we teach the African traditional medicine in our universities? You said yes.
Yeah. I always appreciate the fact that Nigeria is always ahead. Because in their universities, they started that long ago. It's true that they started mixing it up with witchcraft and whatsoever. That is where it got bad. But then they had started studying that in their universities. And I appreciate that a lot. If till date Nigeria has not been able to come up with a medicine like something like what Samuel Cleda just did, that means there is something wrong somewhere. But then this course needs to be studied in all African universities. Madagascar proved it to us, and we are glad about that. Cleda has done same. Why not all African countries? I think there are particular people in each African country that has come up with something to fight against this COVID-19. But there is a lack of unity and support. That is what is killing us Africans. And the more we are not united, the more we fall. Because we need to stand together and say, yes, we have to add this as a course in our universities. And why not? The upcoming generation will grow to know that, no, we have to use our plants and concoct medicines for malaria, for example, medicines for cholera, medicines for whatsoever. Since almost all the illnesses are said to be ours. Remember when there was a corona outbreak, this cholera outbreak, they said it's for the Africans.
Yes.
How did they call that other
Ebola.
one? Ebola. It was for the Africans.
HIV.
HIV was for the Africans. Malaria was for the Africans. If we had been working day and night to make sure that we come up with medicines to cure these illnesses, we wouldn't have been where we are today. And I think we are going to do something great for this COVID-19.
Yes.
Okay, I just wish to add that, remember that when something is invented or discovered, there is always room for improvement. And how does improvement come? Because one person has set the pace, others will come with their own knowledge, others come, which means that if African traditional medicine is given a chance, I think that it will put the brains to work. And when it puts the brain to work, like for instance, let's take an example like what Cleda has just come up with. If other minds, there's somebody who might not have the know-how to start something, but will be able to give wonderful contributions that would lead to the success of that thing.
Okay.
It's not how it started, but how it ends.
Okay, time. You are talking about Africans coming together and working, but we understand that when it comes to African traditional medicine, there is this kind of secrecy that goes around it. We understand that with modern science, once you discover anything, we have the formula to do this, to have this. But in Africa, Cleda has not even declared the what he used to come out with the cure that he has. Is it not blocking this advancement that would have made in teaching it? And how are we going to teach what is still considered hidden in our African context?
Remember that even before not declaring the component, because I remember there was one time he said that he needs to give the right proportions, tell you it's not just telling you that I use this, I use this, I use this, but what is the proportion? Remember, if we are Africans, you and I, if it is said that, okay, I took this ingredient and this one, people will take overdose. That is why if he has come up with it, he needs other minds, and the first thing is acceptance. If it is not accepted, it cannot be encouraged. That is one thing, which means that from the base, we need to accept it. If we accept it, other minds will come in to assist him, and together they will come up with a perfect proportion, and the whole world will know about it.
Okay, madam, we talk something else away a bit from this crisis, school resumption, coronavirus. You know, yesterday, the 25th of May, African is always celebrated as the African Day, and the African Union celebrated its 57th anniversary, and we're trying to ask, our time is up, we're trying to ask, with neo-colonial rule, poor governance, and now the COVID-19 crisis, is the African Union worth celebrating?
Not at all.
Okay.
I think that not at all, because looking at one of the primordial objectives of the African Union, you're going to realize that it is set to see into the peace of the African continent and the dwellers of Africa. But you realize that even up till today, we still have Africans who still have the attitude of xenophobic attitudes, not even going right to the whole continent. Look at our country, Cameroon. What has the AU done to help us just with the Anglophone crisis before coming into talking about COVID-19 and all whatnot? What have they done? So I see that they have failed. The AU has failed in its outlined objectives. Yes.
Okay. Subiru, our time is up. 1 minute.
Why should they celebrate that?
Yes, you said no.
Why should they celebrate when the Africans themselves are not united? When all these presidents, these African presidents, have their differences? Why should they celebrate? Because they have never been together to say, okay, look at what is happening in South Africa with xenophobia. What have they said about that? I don't even want to talk about the Anglophone crisis here, but that xenophobia is something that is still killing us till date. And I think if it continues as such, that means the African Union is just there.
It has no place.
Yes, it has no place. It is just there to do its own one-man show and leave the place for others.
If I understand, if I get the two of you well, we are saying that the African Union has deviated from its original, objective that was set at the moment it was conceived. That was in 1963.
Exactly.
Thank you, ladies, for being in this edition of Viewpoint this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of today's edition. Would be available again tomorrow for what the world would have been saying, what our society would have been saying. Programs continue here on DBS television, and hope to meet you again safe. Good night. Goodbye.